The ongoing tension between X, the social media platform owned by Elon Musk, and the government of India primarily centers around content moderation, namely censorship and regulatory oversight. Now, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, or METI as it's known, has been scrutinizing X over the behavior of Grok. That's an artificial intelligence or AI chatbot. Now, reports indicate that Grok has been generating controversial responses, including the use of Hindi slang and expletives, as well as inflammatory comments about political figures like the Prime Minister. Separately, X has filed a petition today in the Karnataka High Court challenging the government's use of Section 79(3)(b) of the IT Act to take down online content. Remember this, Section 79(3)(b), because I'll be explaining that. Now, X also objects to the creation of the Sahyog Portal, a site where complaints can be lodged against X. So X argues that the government's application of Section 79(3)(b), which I was referring to, and also the Sahyog Portal, which I mentioned, creates, and I quote, an unlawful and unregulated censorship mechanism that bypasses statutory safeguards. Now, the government counters that argument of X and argues that 79(3)(b) of the IT Act does empower it to notify intermediaries like X to remove unlawful content quickly and effectively. X says that content blocking should only occur under another section, Section 69A of the IT Act, which it says provides a structured process, including judicial oversight, written reasons, and opportunities for appeal, safeguards which X says are being ignored under the current practice. Now, the government counters this and says that Section 79(3)(b), which the government endorses, explicitly states that intermediaries lose their immunity. So an intermediary here refers to X. They lose their immunity if they fail to act upon government notifications of unlawful content. The government argues Section 79(3)(b) is not dependent on the section which Twitter or X is referring to, which is Section 69A. The government says that they're separate. So the bigger question, why would the government want to do this? Why? Because the government feels that it needs the power to curb misinformation, lawlessness, and threats to public order, especially on platforms like X. Well, joining us now, Shreya Singhal. She's an advocate in the Delhi High Court, but it was the Shreya Singhal case that really brought the entire issue of freedom of speech versus the rights of the government to regulate content online into sharp focus. We're also joined by Jiten Jain, Mukesh Chaudhary, Nandan Mishra, and Mishi Chaudhary. Thank you all very much for being with us. Jiten Jain, let me come to you first. How does the government ensure content removal orders don't silence freedom of speech instead of just protecting public safety?
Vishnu, there are 2-3 issues at play here. A, does the government of the day need some mechanism to remove unlawful content or content which could challenge the sovereignty or security of India? Yes. Should there be a mechanism where they can force these companies to take down the content instantly in 24 hours or 48 hours? We can debate about the timelines. That is required. But what should be the process? And what should be the fairness and transparency in that process? Now, what has happened in last 4 to 5 years, especially during the farmer protests, there are so many cases where government is trying to block handles in wholesale in masse because they realize that there has been, campaign run by hostile neighbors like Pakistan, massive disinformation campaigns using fake accounts, impersonated accounts. And in that process, they ended up blocking a couple of genuine accounts also. So and then there's a second issue. Here, when you issue a blocking orders on the Section 69A, the intermediary or the service provider is not supposed to inform the end user about the blocking. 3, now there is this another Section 79(3)(b), where it says that your safe harbor provisions could that if you are notified by a court order or a appropriate government agency about a harmful content or the restrictions which are imposed under Article 19(2), which government later on expanded through IT rules that any law being in time in force that must be followed by these companies. And that is in a way a gray area where you are just informing Twitter, and if they don't do it, they are also again culpable of promoting illegality and all those things. So the Twitter argument is that any sort of blocking should happen by 69A, section 69, where a committee is formed, orders are issued in writing, there is a review committee, there is an appellate process.
Right.
And then, but the ultimate thing is, you see, somewhere down the line, government also has to holistically review this entire process and bring a little bit of transparency. Where tomorrow a news channel or a blogger if his account is withheld or blocked for any reason, he should at least be informed.
All right. So the process of transparency is I think, a key point.
Vishnu, the last point nobody's talking about. See, all these blocking orders, even when 59 fake tweets during Delhi riots about 1,500 Muslim women being killed or children being put under cyanide gases were put out from Pakistan. Those accounts are only withheld in India, not globally.
Right.
So Twitter, despite of knowing it is an absolutely fake news, they are limiting in a particular geography, not in other geographies. So that is also an equally important issue which must be debated in this entire debate now. And Twitter also has to look within that how they are responding to genuine requests about the law and order.
It's not just Twitter. Even if you look at Google Earth and Google Maps, the boundaries and things like that we see over here in our country are different in a sense from what you can see off our country if you're traveling abroad.
And what if Google had refused to
Okay, hold on. We're talking about Twitter. We'll talk about
imagine?
Google later on. Hold on. Shreya Singhal, why do you think, or do you think that free speech should outweigh the government's efforts to stop harmful content online?
See, the government can only regulate. Harmful is a very wide word. It's a very subjective word. What are the regulations? What kind of speech can the government regulate? That is clearly given in 19(6) of the Constitution. It is only that. It is not an overarching power that the government has to curb free speech under the guise of it being supposedly harmful. So there are two different things, but a simple answer to your question is that no, it cannot on the guise that it will harm. Harm who? Harm a political party, harm a person, harm an ideology, or harm the integrity and public safety and national security. Even the definitions of public safety and national security have to be weighed not in a skewed manner, but in a manner that is actually there for the general public.
Okay. Nandan Mishra, why do you need or why does the government need broad powers to censor posts when we already have laws to handle security threats?
Simply because, Vishnu, the pace at which it travels and the pace at which misinformation travels is much faster as compared to actual information. And the kind of reactions that can come up and the kind of hoax that can be built around misinformation, it's potentially very dangerous. So the government's take on ensuring that its sovereignty, because it's operating on its land and security is well in place. However, it's about the nature of the policy implementation, which I think should be very much technology enabled. You can have AI-based screening and faster actions and much explainable actions that will bring in transparency around the process. No matter which section you use, you can bring in much more explainability and transparency around government's actions. And I think the government should work towards that. I'm very sure that the discourse in the court would move towards that. Having said that, I think X has taken this up because Elon says that he's a free speech absolutist. And from that perspective, he feels that this would be a huge PR boost also as a defender of digital rights, and that's where they would differentiate themselves from Meta. So I think it's a very interesting discourse that will unfold in the court if both the sides play just to their sides. And I would say that both are correct on their when they're putting those things out. Yeah.
Mishi, some of the statements or some of the parts of the petition which I've gone through put out by which on the basis of which X is arguing, say that their business model is being impacted by what the government is doing. It also seems to suggest that continuing in the same manner might be problematic for them. They didn't use those words, but I think that's what they were saying. Could there actually be a situation if the government holds strong on this issue that Twitter might disappear out of India, or do you believe that some sort of compromise will be arrived at?
Well, when compromises like this happen between power and money, the details are usually negotiated in the dark, which is a problem because all of us are the public and the users of it. I will say that the Government of India actually blocked 12,483 URLs in 2023, 12,863 in 2024. So what is happening here is the government wants to take down content. Sometimes they do have legitimate reasons to take down content, for which there is a process under 69A. Although that process is also shrouded in secrecy. A petition in Supreme Court is now pending, which was accepted 2 weeks ago, to say, at least tell the person whose content you are taking down. You can't just say, oh, I told Twitter, I told Meta. And for a long time, we have been saying that these platform companies who pretend to be protector of free speech and expression outside really are happy to kowtow to whatever is being asked of them in the privacy. And that's why you see a lot of stuff disappears from Instagram, from Facebook, from Twitter, etc. Now, but because why this all is not transparent is because a lot of material is also taken down, which does not fall in the categories which Shreya just now pointed out. That is a legitimate way of taking down content. When you want to do something censorship by proxy in the secrecy, which is happening, and then you want to threaten, this entire petition is actually something which is to say, we are threatening you that an exemption section which gives you exemption from any legal action, we will take away that protection. It's a farce, but the farce has gone so far because nobody has challenged that farce. That's why now you see, whether it's Ministry of Defense or Finance or any other ministry, we are empowering state governments, various other officers to say, whoever feels like, just issue an order, and we are going to do this censorship whenever we don't like something. So I think whether it is X or any other platform, they are right to be saying that the entire business model is for having free flow of information, not a sanitized version of information. But I will also say, Elon or Meta or anybody, we would take all their claims with a grain of salt, because it's obviously when it suits them, they become defenders of free speech. It also depends which jurisdiction they're playing in, because in the United States, it's something today, another thing tomorrow. And in India, when it suits them, they come up with something else. And that's why all of these things, we really must keep the user at the center. You and me, who use these platforms all day, we need to be informed when our content is taken down, why it's being taken down, and then what is the recourse. And that's why whether it is 69A or 79.
Okay, fair enough. I get your point. Mukesh Chaudhary, 69A actually provides a structured process, right? Including judicial oversight, written reasons, and opportunities for appeal. Now, the argument which was made is that it's still pretty vague. But still, is it not better than 79(3)(b) of the IT Act, which the government is using as a weapon in a sense, whereas Section 69A actually provides safeguards?
So basically the problem with the various foreign providers is that at times they do not understand the context wherein any law enforcement or investigation agency, when they are investigating a matter, it can be a matter related to a caste, maybe some tweet is going viral, it can create some communal riots, maybe some religious beliefs are being hurted. So there are many internal issues which India as a country is facing. And when law enforcement agency, they approach them to take down the content or to remove the content or to share the details, at times they do not understand our internal issues and they do not take it as a national security threat or the immediate threat which agencies are facing or which agencies are going to face. So while working with agencies, I also face such kind of problems in many situations and in many cases, not only with X, with other platforms as well. They do not understand, so they need to understand our internal policies, our internal issues, region-wise issues. There can be different issues region-wise. caste-based issue, maybe, or maybe religious or sentiments, when it gets hurt over some tweet or some online post, maybe it is not an issue for United States or UK, but maybe there are issues here in India, and there can be communal rights because of that.
Okay.
So they do not understand the situation at times, and they do not cooperate with the agencies.
Jitin, the other big issue, of course, is Grok. That's the AI interface of Twitter, of X, which is, it uses some flowery language, to say the least, when asked particular questions. And it sort of goes about with offering political views in a manner which might make some people feel, deeply offended. And how does one control an AI interface? Is there an expectation that X needs to reprogram Grok to suit the sensibilities of our political leadership?
I would not give it much seriousness, because you see, unlike ChatGPT and many other models, X or Grok, they are basically using live data. I mean, what is available on Google and the news articles, even 24 hours back, is taken into account. And this model is training itself on the live data. It is not a curated data set which has been trained on, like, say, for example, ChatGPT was using information up till 5 years ago or 4 years ago. So when you use live language learning models, these things are bound to happen. And then political banter and some kind of stuff in a tool which is still developing, I think we can let it pass. These things are going to stay. But there is a much serious issue here. Vishnu, two things I would like to point out. If you look at the testimony of Mark Zuckerberg and his apology to Trump, these people admitted that FBI agents, with the security clearances, working in hand with the agencies, with the law enforcement coordinator of these companies, they took down so many content in favor of, to support, I would say, Democratic Party, and they shut down Republicans. All these things happened behind the curtains. 4 years later, they realize they've been played with. They offer an apology to Trump. But in entirety, election process or election prospects of a candidate in the US were, affected. They banned a sitting US president without any court order, without any executive order, without any FIR, without any police order. That they could do. In India, you are expecting even a government notification will not be obeyed with, just because you think that you are the final interpreter of law. I think unlike many other countries, we have a very robust judiciary. We have an appellate process. And I'm sure in this entire process, both governments, they will also have a chance to overhaul this, and Twitter must also look within.
Okay, Jitin, hold on. Mishi wants to respond. Mishi, go ahead.
I do want to say one thing. I think some of you, there is a book right now which was just released, Careless People, which tells you a lot about how election interference and various matters about politics around the world was played out between Meta and their various teams. I will say one thing here. They're private platforms. They can do whatever they like. They can ban whosoever they like. They can kick out all of us. Right now, what happens is that the public square has now become muddled. It used to be that the governments had complete control over those communication. Now, private parties are becoming much more powerful there. That doesn't mean that they have become state. That doesn't mean we can say, oh, I have right to free speech on your platform, which is guaranteed to me under the Constitution. They're not state. They're not government. They can remove Donald Trump. They can bring him back, etc. I will not delve into what Mark Zuckerberg's change of heart is. I will say we should continue to distrust platforms, but we cannot just blindly trust our own governments also, because our governments are also many a times using these various issues to control the narrative. There was a point made earlier, I think 10, 12 years ago, if we said a platform did not understand what happens in India on ground, we would have been right. That's not true. These are sophisticated people. These are Indian people working in these companies. They understand what caste means. They understand what communalism means. We have seen that for a variety of reasons, there is a desire to censor content which happens in secrecy. Otherwise, what is available out there in the Constitution that you must take certain things down. If it's security of states, if it's public order, why can't we do it in the public? Why can't we be open about it?
I just wanted to quickly go back to Shreya, because we're running short on time. Shreya, there's also the Sahyog platform where complaints can be lodged. And the worry is that the number of agencies who are lodging complaints or takedown requests across the country is staggeringly high. and that there is a real worry that those who are making these requests are unable to balance the need for freedom of speech with some sort of order which has been given by their bosses. Oh, I don't like this, take this down. Isn't that the larger issue over here?
I think the larger that is because it has to be linked to the user. An intermediary can be X, Twitter, Facebook, a website, the comment section on any website. It can be NDTV's website. It is irrelevant who the intermediary is. Today, your user who is using it, who is as a platform to voice an opinion, because they don't have any other platform or it is the most convenient, they are being silenced without any intimation. Even 69, that is the problem with 69A is also that it is only based between intermediary and government. And again, all of these chatbots and whatever questions that are being inputted, the fact is, if you don't like something, if it is bothering you, don't look at it. You don't have to just look at it, fester, and say, no, I must take some kind of penal action when there is no crime that has been committed. It can't all go to, oh, it might incite riots, or it might all be caste-based and be a national security issue. Have we become such a sensitive society that we cannot be open to discourse, we cannot be open to using our normal, logical, prudent mind? That is what the court goes by. What would a prudent man do? Why do we lose all prudence or sense and sensibility on the internet and when viewing something on the internet?
I think those are very important, larger questions that we don't have any answers to. But thank you so much.
Can I say just one line?
No, one line, Jitin, because you never listen to me. One line means one line. Please go ahead.
Just one line. I would any day trust elected government over a American oligarch or a Chinese dictator running those apps.
Okay, fair enough. That's your perspective. I think most of us would agree in as much as we want as much expression out there as possible, as long as it's safe. Thanks very much for joining us.